Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, put that up. And I think you guys have got an offer for us as well, haven't you?
Yes, we'll leave it till the end, but we've got a nice little offer. Can't wait to give it all to you guys.
It's really exciting because it's all brand new. I'm really excited about that.
Okay, share the screen. Okay, we just get it. Move you over here. There we go.
Okay, are we off?
We are off.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. I'll leave you guys to it, and I'll just jump back in on the end for a bit of Q&A.
Right, okay, thank you everybody for joining, and welcome to HMO Success. This is so exciting. I've got butterflies in my stomach, quite literally, to talk you through all this. But first of all, massive
thank
you to Josh and Alice for organising this. I don't know how you've done it, because I'm a complete technophobe, could never do any of that. So well done. It must be they must have put a lot of work into getting this going. So with that said, can you all dig deep, please? And can you make sure that you go to this page and give to our wonderful NHS? And yeah, so you've had such a massive amount of content so far. We're going to give you some more. There's been some fantastic speakers on here, and can't wait to share all this with you today. Please keep giving, and Josh is smashing those targets.
Hey, donate. Don't forget. Next one.
Right, so who are the HMO Training Academy? Right, so we are an academy that's set up to teach you all things HMO, to get you started in this wonderful money generating business that we've done. We've operated for a long time now, probably over 20 years actually, and more than that between us. So we've done this for a long time, and we just want to pass this knowledge on to you, and how to operate your business properly and compliantly, and to make yourself some really nice cash flow. So a bit about me first then. So showing my age, I forgot to put the date on there. So 1985, yeah, it started at the youth training scheme. Bit of a sad story. I was bereaved of my mother in the same year, and actually found myself in a position of homelessness. Quite true, actually. My brother had lost 5 years before that, so I did find myself actually well on my own, and in sort of, well, nearly in bedsit land. It didn't quite happen that way. So I was traipsing the streets looking for bedsits at the time. Right, really horrible part of my life. Sorry, I'm just trying to move my screen back up there. There we go. Now, so coincidentally, or ironically even, because I joined the council eventually through, and this is about determination, by the way, this is why I'm telling you this, because it's especially in times like this now, it just shows you can do anything really if you try. So from being homeless to finding myself somewhere to live, to then training myself, I was offered a job as homeless persons officer, and I ran the homeless department at South Staffordshire Council for quite a number of years, and through that introduced a private sector, I should say leasing scheme, nearly there, leasing scheme to the council to cut down the bed cost. So during that time I was offered day release at Birmingham, as it was Polytechnic then, really showing my age, and became qualified with the Chartered Institute of Housing in 1991, and bagged a job at Bromford Housing Association, the Bromford Group now, were called Bromford Corinthian Housing Association, and carried on in property leasing. And I guess this is all relevant, this is why I'm telling you all this. So as a property leasing manager then, we covered up to as far as Stoke and down as far as Birmingham and beyond sometimes, and that was social housing tenants. So I had a lot of experience in social housing tenants. Moved on when that funding was cut, and bagged another job, which I couldn't believe at the time, but just shows you if you can do these things. Really gobsmacked to land the job as University of Wolverhampton Residential Services Manager. Had a big salary increase, couldn't believe what had happened, but kind of thought that I'd earned it, really, to be fair. I was operating a 4.5 million rent roll at the time. That was a lot of responsibility, and with all that, managed all the private sector houses in the area, so you can imagine what a big role, all the student accommodation in that area there. I was kind of in charge. So after I had my little girl, she's not so little anymore, then I decided to go and work for myself and ran a business, opened a business which was called Housemates, which turned into an annual turnover. And I'm going to come to this shortly and teach you how you can do this, because if I can do it, you can, believe me. So we had an annual turnover then, which is when I met Georgie, she'll tell you about that. The annual turnover of that company was £100,000 a year. That's not just rent received, that was actually my fees, my earnings from that company, which was a lovely amount to have coming in. And I sold that company 2 years ago for a 6-figure sum, so it just shows, doesn't it? Along with that, then myself and Georgie had rent-to-rent portfolios. Georgie helped me. We kind of worked together on it, really. I had some buy-to-lets in the portfolio. And after I sold my business 2 years ago, then if I'm honest, I had some time off because why not? So I did, and I did retrain, became a compliant property sourcer. So I've done a lot of that. And then we decided to get together and put all our knowledge and skills to launch the HMO Training Academy, which we do now. Georgie still manages property, and so we've kind of stayed together now. We're almost like husband and wife, aren't we?
Definitely.
we're also good friends, and so we operate together. And Georgie will tell you a little bit about her background too.
Okay, so let's tell you a bit about me, where I come from. So I've got a bit of a different perspective. I didn't always start in the HMO market. I came as a student to the Wolverhampton University, and I ended up doing social care and social policy at the end of it. So I did university. That's where I met Marie. So I lived in a variation of different types of HMOs. I lived in all-inclusive HMOs. I lived in big bed HMOs. I lived where we paid all the bills together. So I got quite a lot of experience of the service user, the client sort of thing, as being the tenant. And I learned quite a lot from that in that respect, which kind of has developed the way in which I now manage property independently. So I started working with Marie probably it's been about 6 years. Started off doing just general cleaning, progressing then into the management, which I really enjoy working with people. So I was with Marie up until she sold it. We had a great time. So many funny stories with some of the tenants. And then obviously I had my own rent-to-rent as well. We managed the rent-to-rents, and it was quite a good revenue of extra income. It helped me massively with my dreams and goals with travelling. I've got quite a lot of wanderlust. I like to travel. I did Europe and Thailand and India. I did Thailand and India about 2 years ago, so my rent-to-rents helped me in that context. So when Marie sold it, I left it a little bit of time. I went with it, but then I decided that I wanted to set up on my own, do my own property management, be my own boss, and use all the knowledge that I've got in order to do it for myself. And then we've always talked about doing training for other people, because we found that a lot of investors that were coming into the market to do the HMOs had some of the knowledge, they got some of the training, they got a bit basic, but they didn't know the things that we could probably tell them about some of the stuff that we're gonna cover today. So that's why we set up. We want to educate, make sure you do it properly, and make sure you guys become successful. So here's a little flashback for you. This is us in our little office, our little shop front near the university. It was quite a good little office. Got quite cold in the winter. But it was great. We had a great time in there. It was great for the students walking past, and it was just brilliant in that little mini office, just the two of us, and Toby the dog most of the time. Don't forget that. So a lot of you that have been watching, that's a bit about us, but a lot of you have been watching over the last couple of days, and you've had a lot of incredible speakers. So we're just going to cover about what actually is a HMO. Before we get started into telling you how to get one and how successful they are, we need to tell you what it is first, for those that you don't know. So HMO is a house in multiple occupation. You can't say that all the time, so we just call it HMOs. It's a lot easier. It's the Housing Act qualification for a house or a flat with more occupants forming 2 or more households. So for an example for that, so if you've got a 2-bed flat with a couple and an unrelated friend comes and, you know, starts staying in the spare room, that then technically becomes a HMO, and the compliance then applies for a HMO, because it's not based on, it's based on households, but it's based on how many people. So 2 or more, so more than 2 people, it's classed as a HMO. 2 or more people unrelated. So once they start to become unrelated and you've got 3 people in there, that's where it becomes a HMO. Is that the best way of saying it? Yeah. Okay, so HMO strategies. So there are quite a few HMO strategies, but the ones that me and Marie predominantly focus on are the rent-to-rent strategy. So a rent-to-rent is where you go to a fellow landlord, you rent the property off them for a fixed amount for a guaranteed amount of time, and then you get it all compliant and you re-rent each room out individually and you charge your tenants for that. So it's a low cost entry. There is a cost to it. You do have to put some money down to believe that I know a lot of trainers out there say that, you know, it's completely no money down a lot of the time, but you do have to put some money in to get you set up, but it is low entry. So that's a good way of doing it. And then there's also the buy to let, which you have to get a 25% deposit plus fees. Now this is something based on pre-COVID. It may change with the mortgages, you know, when lockdown, when we come out of lockdown, and this may vary, but you do need to have a substantial amount of money in order to put down as a deposit to start with. But buy to lets is a great way of getting your HMOs. So you can start from rent to rent and then progress once you've got a big portfolio. You start putting money down for deposits or buy to let. Okay, so it's all about mindset, and Marie's going to talk to you a bit about mindset with HMOs because it's quite an important thing.
It is indeed. Yeah, so I've mentored a lot of people quite recently, well, over the last few months, and it does appear that some people do think this is a bit of a get rich quick scheme, particularly the rent to rent strategy, and it isn't. It is a scheme that you can set up, and if you do it methodically and properly, systematically and compliantly, then over time this will scale up very nicely, but it isn't going to happen overnight, and you need to understand that. Do you need money to set up rent-to-rent properties? Yes, you do. It's a lower entry level. You're not going to be owning the property, but you will still need some setup costs, and it's important that you understand that you do need some setup costs, albeit you will start paying those back to yourselves in the not too distant future. You're going to, for example, you may need furniture, you will need to pay some costs to perhaps letting agents, you will might need a deposit. There'll be some compliance issues, fire doors and that kind of thing. So it is money you're going to have to find up front, but then you can start paying yourself back once you start to cash flow these properties with the systems that we can teach you. So you need to be prepared to learn this. Now, unfortunately, like most things, if you're going to try and do this off YouTube, then you're going to struggle a lot, because it's not as easy as it sounds. Actually, you do need a lot of knowledge, because there are some pitfalls and there are things that go wrong. And if they do go wrong, then it's the opposite. This is going to cost you money. So just be mindful of that. Know your why, know why you want to do it, and have a plan and a goal. That's really important that you set out, not just say, well, I'm going to get 10 straight away, because that's just very unlikely to happen. And if you're starting out, we suggest you start small with a small 4-bed HMO, start from there and work your way up to the big baddies, the big 6, 7s and 8s you can do eventually. Networking is key. Leverage other people, as you can tell from this now that we're doing. There's so many people out there that will help you, will guide you. You can ask questions, you can use your networks on social media. Generally people in the property community are very, very generous, very helpful, and if you reach out, people will help you. So use your networks, and when we're not all locked down, then obviously go to network meetings as well. Be prepared to look at continuous development. Things change, legislation changes, demographics change. Look what's happening now. You need to be able to adapt and change, and keep your knowledge up to date, and look at things about what's happening now, and just keep yourself generally up to date what's going on in the big world, the housing world out there. Next slide.
Okay, so the HMO market. So pre-COVID-19, where was it? It was mainly predominantly in our areas, professionals and students. These are the main two markets that you've got. So that's where a lot of it was. There are universal credits, but predominantly a lot of people would focus on the students and the professionals. So at the moment, there's no current movement unless you're key workers. It has restricted it. We have tried, I know Marie has tried to re-let one of her rooms that was empty, someone that fell in the category, but it did, and I have seen a few other places, cause a bit of an issue with the other tenants. They didn't want other people moving in with them. There's quite a lot of, they're quite scared if they don't know how they've been into contact or where they've been. So we've had to put a bit of a stop. It has put a stop on the market a bit generally in HMOs at the moment. You can put some in, but I say you have to be considerate of the tenants that you've got, because for one person you could end up losing the rest of your tenants. Students still paying, but most of them have gone home. I've got quite a few students in some of the HMOs that I manage for. Predominantly the portfolio is a split between professionals and students. Some of them have gone home, but not all of them. I've got one of the houses where they've actually stayed and are still there right now because they are working as key workers. So not all of them have gone home. The market is a bit uncertain at the moment. You know, we've got a lot of people paying for the first month. It's not really, I think, until next week when the 1st of May comes that we find out actually to the extent if more people are struggling and where it's going to go from there. But it is a bit of an uncertain market at the moment, but I don't think that's going to be forever. And Marie's going to talk to you about post-COVID in a moment, but at the moment it's a little bit uncertain. There's more property up for sale. There are a lot of properties that are still up for sale. There are properties at the moment that probably are falling through sales pre-COVID and during this period, because you can't sell houses at the moment. So offers that were there a month or two ago will probably still be there. Will probably give you a little bit more of a leeway into the property market next. But so all these things are still happening. There are still more. There was prior COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. There are empty properties out there. There are still properties for you to try and get back onto the market that are derelict. So that hasn't really changed in that sense. There are still tired properties. There were prior to COVID, and they're still tired now. More so because you can't go out and do the little bit of a makeover, because your tenants don't probably want you to, and you're trying to keep everyone else safe. And there are still tired landlords. There will always be tired landlords. There will always be people that have been in the game for quite a long time that do want to get out. So that really hasn't changed in really at all, I don't think. So if Marie wants to go and talk to you about post-COVID, so over to you.
Okay, so like with anything and in recessions before, these difficult times will bring opportunities to people. That's not to say we're taking advantage of people's unfortunate times. We are in some senses helping people with solutions to bring them with their properties that might be standing empty and not bringing them in any income. So it's time to look at opportunities that might be out. As Georgie said quite rightly, they were there before, they'll continue afterwards, and we think the HMO market will grow in strength for a number of reasons. It's already been mentioned on quite a few talks on this conference. We do feel that people will be moving more for work. The younger people who can, or the single people perhaps, who can move towards jobs, or perhaps even people who are in family situations who might just need to go and work away somewhere to send money back home to the family. There'll be a raft of those. There'll also be, I believe there's 2 million people that have signed on to universal credit that wouldn't have normally be on universal credit. These are going to be people that are post-COVID unemployed. They're not the long-term unemployed that people talk about in terms of, I don't like the term, but DSS. These are people that are just short-term unemployed in unfortunate times, probably very scared, probably don't know what's going to happen, and having to go down the universal credit route. And there will be a raft of people that we can look at helping house some of those people, because there will be a downward movement of people perhaps who are in flats now who may then decide to go and do a house share while they save some more money to get more established. There will be cheaper accommodation will be needed, as I've said, more single households, and when we've been in lockdown, then as we know, there's been a 700% increase in calls to domestic violence helplines, and that is shocking to the core, but that is the truth. There will be more breakups, and unfortunately there will be more people who want accommodation for that particular reason. Now with the SA market, there may be some opportunities there, and we can help SA operators to turn them into HMOs if they do comply and if they're big enough. So we've had a look as well. There seems to be a good demand generally. People are still looking for accommodation now. If you look at a spare room, I've been looking today, and there's still, I'd say it's not an exact science, spare room anyway at the best of times, but there are people going on there and posting new adverts looking for accommodation. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom, and I think definitely the HMO market is the place to be in terms of a housing strategy, certainly for this year and going into next year. And yeah, so as long as we have good standard HMOs, then they're going to be a good market to be in and lettable. Okay.
So keys to financial success through property, that's what we try to get people to achieve. That's our main focus. We want people to succeed in HMOs, and we do it in a 3-part system. We've kind of broken it down into 3 separate S's. So it's sourcing, setting up, and successful lets. Now you need to understand each and every step of this process in order to make it successful, so that you get the right property and you invest in the right area. Because if you know when to invest and when to walk away, you need to make sure it's set up correctly so that you don't get any fines, you don't put yourself exposed, and you get it set up so not only are you protecting yourself, but you're also protecting your tenants. And then we go on to successful lets, which you need to make sure that you're getting the right tenants for your property, for the area, which we're going to cover a little bit later on in the show, in this little slideshow that we've done. We are with you through the whole process. So our main philosophy is going with you, making sure that you get where you need to get to, making you compliant, and making sure that your tenants are safe. We found that there are a lot of providers out there that just kind of give you the knowledge of getting the house and then just kind of abandon you, and that's not the way we see it. We don't see it as ethical, and that's not how we want to provide training, which is why we're doing this today, to give you some knowledge of an overview of some of the aspects that you need to make sure that you learn. So over to you, Marie. Over 20 years experience. I think Marie's got more of the experience. 20 years.
Only because I'm older. Yeah, so 20 years experience. We really have seen it all. We've had the good, the bad and the ugly over time, and we teach this all through experience, and the book I'll talk to you about a little bit later is lots and lots of stuff that we're teaching you through literally what's happened on the ground out there, and some real toe curling stories at the end of it as well. So yeah, so this training will give you not only the modules will give you online training when you want it, and we're there to guide you through it with accountability calls and the money back guarantee. Now, one thing that we did say that we'd like to add on to this is we have some people who are going to join the course, talking about universal credit for the reasons I said on the previous slide, and social housing, because that is certainly an area that some people want to go into, and I think an area that some people will need to divert into that because what's happening at the moment. We are also looking at doing joint venture partners with people who want to work with us to do rent to rent in certain areas. New people who are investing in rent to rent sometimes find it difficult to get through the door with agents if they don't have any experience. So if you want to work with us, then we can be the joint venture partner that will have the experience for you to get that deal, which doesn't mean that we share the profit, by the way. It means that we're there to teach you how you make the profit for yourself.
Because we want people to be successful in it. We want you to get the training so that you don't fall into any of the pitfalls that we will talk about. So why invest in a HMO? So we've talked about HMOs, we've talked about what it is, but why would you want to invest? Why would you want to change your strategy now? The market's changing, so why would you want to invest in a HMO? So I'll hand you over to Marie. She's going to show you a real life example of one of her buy-to-let.
Okay, yeah. So this is the first HMO that we bought. It was bought for the purpose. Oh, I need to move that over there. For the purpose of providing for my daughter's education at university, and we bought this when she was 4. Now this has given us a nice income over the years. It's a very low mortgage now, which has actually gone down even further recently as it's on a variable rate. As you can see, it's quite a magnolia house. It's nothing special, but it does what it says on the tin. It's compliant, it's warm, it's clean, and it's looked after, and it's near to the university, so it does all that it needs to do. The rental income you can see there is £1,350 a month. My mortgage payments have just gone down to an incredibly low £75, so this is a little bit out of date now. There's my utilities, my council tax, my water, my Wi-Fi, gives me a total outgoing of 403, which is less than that now. And so if you look at the balance as was, so that should be now nearer £1,000 because the mortgage rate's gone down. So that one now will be making £1,000 a month on that 3-bedroomed small terraced house in the heart of Wolverhampton. So this is how the figures can stack up quite nicely. There are some voids that sometimes we have to factor into that. I do have a void at the moment, as Georgie has suggested, because I can't occupy it. It's never normally empty at all. I have that filled all the time, and I do manage that one and even do a spot of cleaning myself. The maintenance is low because I've had new bathroom and kitchen, so it's quite low maintenance. And then if we go on to the rent to rent one, I'll just show you this one because it's in the same street, so this is a direct comparable to how the figures work in the same street, same sort of house, 3-bedroom, 2 reception rooms. So there we go, a little bit lower because I've got a smaller 4th bedroom, so I get £1,250 on that one. And there goes my rent. I pay to the landlord each month for £525. My utilities are all pretty much the same as the one up the road, which gives me a net profit of 427. So yeah, so if you can generate these in the same area particularly, obviously the buy-to-let one gives me more income, but it's I need to put money down on that one to start with. This one is a lower entry. I just had to put furniture in this one at the start. It was all pretty much ready to go. So if we go on to the next, these figures get more exciting. Wait for it.
Just to say that this is a lower profit here, but you can get more than this, and it is only just because of that. You had a smaller room on this occasion, on this one.
Yeah, that's probably minimum, yeah. So I do self-clean and manage that one. Right, so this is the HMO that I purchased then, so 85,000 purchase price. This shows you what this little tiny property in the heart of Wolverhampton, what this has done for in my life, and you think this how this it could be done for yourself too. Value, we had it valued, had an offer actually, it was up for sale at 1.125. I still had an uplift of £40,000 over, and it actually went up in value when Article 4 came in Wolverhampton. It increased the value of it. Now each year, and it's on my tax return, is either just slightly under or just slightly over £8,000. Over 13 years, it's generated me income of £104,000, and including the uplift, it's made me, that little house has made me over 13 years £144,000. Now that's nice, isn't it? That's all right. I've got any more exciting figures? Right, so let's add into that then. This is possible because we've done it, and we actually have done this. So we've had a portfolio of rent-to-rent properties, and we haven't got them all now, but we've done this back in the day. Right, so you look at 10 properties then, which can average you, as you've just seen, a minimum of £500. Over 12 months, that would be per property 6,000, correct? Right, times that by, if you can get 10 properties quite easily, and like we're saying, in these markets now, this shouldn't be too difficult to do, depending on the area. It depends on quite a few things, but look at that, £60,000 income of 10 properties, which is a part-time income. It's not full-time. The investment is learning how to do this properly, learning how to do it compliantly. It isn't, once it's up and running, it's not, believe me, it's not full-time income, 10 properties. So so if you look at the income from having your own portfolio, what about if you thought about managing for other people? This is even more exciting. Right, so we've done this and we operated from our little shop and we managed properties for other people. Now this was directly management, as in any money that we collected went to the landlord, less 10%. It's not the same as a rent-to-rent model, it's different. It's managing for other people who have the rent themselves, but you charge for that service. So look at these figures then. On average, as I've shown you, a 4-bedroom property could generate £1,300. At 10% a month, which is minimum management charge, some charge more than that, that's £1,300 a month, on top of which you can charge let fee, which is to charge the landlord at the start. When you let the property out, it can be anything between, well, it can be up to 100%, so the first month's rent can be charged as fees, and you do work harder on these, so why not? Look at that. So that gives you then on 10 properties £13,000 from your let fees. You won't necessarily get it every year, it depends how long your tenants stay. So management then 15,600 based on those over the year, and your let fees 13,000, 28,500 on managing for and on behalf of other people. They won't be your tenants, they'll be other people's tenants. So it's a slight difference. So let's add it all together. This is what we were doing and more. We have a put it all together slide. I'm just conscious of time now. We've just got about 10 minutes, I believe. So that's nice, isn't it? 10 rent-to-rent properties, £60,000, 10 managed HMOs, 28. That's a nice figure, and even that wouldn't be full-time. That would take a fair bit of your time, but it wouldn't be full-time, and you do need to cover out-of-hours emergencies and things like that. But 20 properties, yeah, still part-time, and scalable up and up and up till, well, sky's the limit, as you can see from that. So just starting to talk a little bit faster because I think we're going to run out of time. If we go on now to our next slide.
Which will be me. Just to put a comment on that, because we did have a portfolio of quite a few rent-to-rents at the time. So it does average between the figure we said in the first one and about £500 is about an average between them when you equal amount between all of them. So the only thing that it doesn't include though is the business expenses and the figures. So business compliance and expenses, this is quite important, especially when you are doing rent to rent or you're going to manage for other people. So you need to be a member of ICO, which is basically the GDPR stuff that you need to be registered for, and that's about £40 a year. Because it is a cost that you need to factor in. But if you're doing it for rent to rent and then you're managing, once you've got it, you can carry it across if you've got it with the same company, so you can just use it across for both. The PRS, if you are a rent-to-renter or you are become a managing agent and for other people, you do need to be a part of the property redress scheme, which is the property ombudsman, so that their tenants have somewhere that they can complain to, and that you are all above board. But you do need to become a member, and that's about £120 on average. I think it's just gone up slightly per year. Insurance. Now, insurance is variable, but you do need to have insurance. A lot of people don't think about insurance when it comes down to the rent-to-rent strategy, but it is so important because you can have all the same things happen with a landlord that was buy-to-let, but you are slightly exposed as well as the same legislation as buy-to-let landlords. So you do need to make sure that you have the right insurance, and you can get insurance for rent-to-rent on that one. So you need to make sure that when you do your business compliance, you have the right rent-to-rent agreements, and it's important that they are done correctly, the clauses are done right, and if you do need to leave, there is a break clause, but you need to have sure that your rent agreements are correct when you go into this strategy, to protect yourself and to protect the landlord, and then also to protect your tenants when you get them in. So if you are looking down the route of going to manage for other people, there is an additional cost, which is client money protection, which is, as me being an agent, I am a part of. So for short, it's called the CMP. There are different providers that do it. On average, the one that I pay for is around about £400. So it's £400 plus the VAT, so it's about £480 per year. It is something that you have to have. You have to be compliant, and you have to have the right bank accounts in order to do it. But you do need to have it if you're going to consider managing for other people. Okay. So how to find your deals. So we've told you all about HMOs. How do you find them? You'll hear a lot of people talking about, well, go direct to vendor. Well, how do you do that? So direct to vendor is quite a good way. You're trying to focus on your tired landlords, your people that are ready to come out of the HMO game. And I think there's going to be a lot more of those now. This whole situation with COVID might be the nail in the coffin, that they just want to just get rid of the house now. They can't deal with it. The houses may have been empty either prior to COVID or may have been emptied as a result of it, and they're losing income. So there are probably going to be a lot of deals out there. You can go and speak to Mr. Landlord, and using different platforms of like social media and networking in order to get in contact with them. And there's so many different various ways that you can do direct to vendor, but we've only got an hour, so I can only tell you a few. But use the power of social media, because they're all stuck in the house at the moment. That's what everybody is. So you want to talk about direct to agent, Marie? I know you're quite passionate about.
Right, I'm just going to literally whip through this because we've probably got literally 10 minutes now. We've got quite a few slides left. So direct to agent, this is a big one of mine. This is my favourite ever topic about dealing with agents, mainly because we've been agents. We can talk you through how to use psychology, believe it or not, to get agents to work with you. It's about working with people. It's not about a take thing, which a lot of people seem to do when they come off some of these big courses. We're going to teach you how to work your agents so they'll be bringing properties to you.
Remember, agents don't want to lose their business, so that's what you need to do.
So sourcing agents, another big one. There are very good sources out there. There's some sources out there who don't know enough about HMOs to be sourcing them, in my opinion, and can source properties that are in the wrong area and don't comply. So just conscious of time, if we can just keep the slides going, please.
Okay, so finding your goldmine area. This is really important in the sourcing. When you're sourcing your HMO, you get it slightly wrong, you could be investing and not investing in the right way. You could start to lose money. So what to look for? You need to always assess your demand when you're sourcing a HMO. Demand is important. If it's not there, there's no point investing in it. If it's close to the city is always one of the best places, because that's where everybody works and congregates to. So close to the city. Close to universities, if you're going to tap into the student market. Always good at looking at locations. Make sure that you can actually walk from the property to the university. Students don't like to catch the bus, believe me. Public transport, if you're going for the professional market, make sure that it's close to public transport in terms of trains, buses, and look at the location of the property, because a lot of people in HMOs won't always have a car and access to their own private transportation. Look for industrial areas. Industrial areas are good for your blue collar workers. Your tradesmen is quite a good tenant group. So industrial areas is quite a good thing to look for in terms of your house. A little golden nugget for you there today. Look at future developments. Look at the development of the area that you're going to invest in. Look at what's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of investment in Wolverhampton, for instance. And it's the same across different areas across the country. There's a lot of talk of investment. So look at the future developments. Look at the longevity of what your property deal could give you. Okay, there's a bit of pot of gold there. So finding your goldmine property, it's important to make sure that you find the right property. So what do you need to look for? At least 3 bedrooms and 2 receptions. So at least you can convert it into a 4-bedroomed HMO with a communal space. If it's bigger than that, brilliant. But as a minimum, you need to look for 3 bedrooms and 2 receptions. You need to look, if it's got parking space, it sets you above the market. For the tenants that do have cars, and there are some of them, not all of them, but there are a few. Conversion opportunity. Does it have the ability to be converted into something bigger? Can you make a small house into a 6? So always look for the conversion opportunity. Little golden nugget, make sure that when you're looking at the property, whether it be rent to rent or whether it be buy to let, that the rooms meet the minimum room standards. And you can find them, we can talk to you about that, but you do need to make sure that each room meets the minimum standards so you can let it and it moves you forward, so that if more legislation comes in for some of the smaller properties, that you are at least above board. remember Article 4 and selective licensing. That's particularly something that we haven't really covered so much today because it's so intense. But if you do want to know more about Article 4 and licensing, because Wolverhampton did become an Article 4 area, we know it quite well. That's quite an important thing to consider, especially when you're looking at where you can convert a normal HMO, which is just a family let, into a HMO. So you do need to be aware of those. Okay, so property, it's not all sunshines and rainbows, and anyone that tells you that it is would be lying to you and not telling you the full story. But HMOs you can really have some quite successful experiences. But say, if things go wrong, where we can help you, and we've had some experience, or we've known of some experiences. So in terms of rent arrears, difficult tenants, no tenants, health and safety issues, mitigating risks, council enforcement and fines, bad agents, bad deals that don't stack up, difficult owners and non-committed owners. These are things that can happen. We've experienced a couple of these, but we've also know of stories and we've helped people through these situations already. So it's not all sunshines and rainbows, but it can be a really good strategy. And you get these sort of issues in whatever strategy you go into in property, you will face some of these. Wouldn't you say so, Marie?
I would indeed, yeah. And with the right guidance, then you won't fall down any of these rabbit holes, because we'll be with you, and these things won't happen because we've got lots and lots of things that we'll put in place. So this is far less likely to happen to you. If you don't follow the systems and don't get it right, then these are some of the things that you can end up with, which is a situation we don't want you to be in. And we have seen it happen to people a few times, haven't we?
Yeah. So what I say, when you come into the HMO strategy, don't come in with your rose tinted glasses on. Come into it with open eyes. Understand that there is the good, the bad, the ugly, and there are some really good times out of it as well. But just as long as you know that there is other sides to it with all strategies, so that you just don't fall foul of the law or any of these things that come across. So HMO compliance. So just going to go through some of these.
I think we've got like about, I think, if we're right, Josh, about 2 minutes left. About 2 minutes on my clock, so
yeah, you've got 15 minutes, including questions.
Right, I was waiting for Q&A, okay.
Yeah, you can finish. We've got probably about 5-10 minutes off questions, so you've got a few more minutes yet.
Perhaps we can rattle through that one then. Can we rattle through that one, Georgie, because we need to get to the juicy one at the end.
Yeah, so HMO compliance, all of this, it does look like a lot. Oh, go back it. So it does look like quite a lot, but it is things that you need to be aware of coming into this strategy. There are a lot of regulations that come with it because of the amount of people that you can have in a property at a given time. So you need to understand licensing, you need to understand management regulations so that you can keep your tenants safe, keep them happy, and keep yourself also safe in terms of not avoiding civil penalties. You know, and there are rent repayment orders as well, so you need to make sure that you're doing everything correctly. So we haven't really experienced rent repayment orders as much as the moment, but we do have some support, and we do know someone that has gone through it, so we can guide you through on that one. Housing Health and Safety Rating System, the HHSRS you'll hear that a lot when it comes into HMOs, and you'll hear a lot of it in the property industry anyway. But you do need to make sure that your property are health and safety rated, and that there are no health and safety concerns when your tenants are involved, because you're going to have more people involved in a property rather than just a family single let. So you need to look at lay course and home stamp. So we're giving you lots of homework here. If you're thinking of doing a strategy, these are a few things that you need to go and have a look at. And the lay course and fire safety, you need to make sure that it all complies. And when it comes to licensing, it needs to be bang on the nail. With that, you need to make sure, as with every property that you let to, that they have a gas safety, and you have a qualified gas person go out and do that for you. You also need to have electrical safety, which is quite important, you know, with PAT testing and things like that, to make sure that the whole electrical systems are safe, especially when you have interlinked smoke alarms with that one. And EPCs, it's always best to get an EPC. You're going to have a lot more people living in the house, so they're going to be consuming some of the bills if you've done the all-inclusive offer. So the better EPC you've got, the better it's going to be for you, because you're going to be able to conserve the energy. So think about that when you're EPC. If you can upgrade them, definitely do it. Okay, but let's go on to a bit of the letting process now. So presentation is definitely key when it comes to HMOs. So there's a lovely little property there. This is something that was advertised on Spare Room. Not very appealing, to say the least. And then you've got this one. This is one of our properties that we manage for. And look at the difference. So this is going to be the key when it comes to advertising with tenants. Now, it might seem something so simple, but which one would you choose? Which you need to make that your adverts are appealing to all tenants when you advertise. So the key is in the detail here when it comes to advertising. Okay, so you've got different types of tenant types, so different types of tenant, different types of presentation. But as long as you get a good professional presentation with your photos, you will appeal to these tenant types. So you've got your students. Student market has changed over the years, and they won't settle for that little picture that you put on previously with that undressed bed or that non-modern house. They want professional standard, and that is something that people think in the market. They think that oh it's just a student, we don't need to bother. But that's where the market has changed, and students do want high quality, they do want modern, and they do want it to look better. So that's important. You've also got your professionals, your office workers, your people working in offices, things like that. So you've got quite a lot of professionals as well. You've got your blue collar workers, your construction workers, and one thing is that a lot of the construction workers are still operating at the moment because they're still being allowed to operate. So there are quite a lot of workers that will probably be moving up and down the country, but they are a key worker. So you've got your blue collar workers. That obviously depends on the property type that you have and where your location is. You've then got your social housing tenants, which is quite a good strategy to go down as well, which we're also going to get a lot more support with. I have done social housing, then had some properties that have gone to housing associations in the past, and I've got quite a few. I've just got a bit of experience with dealing with housing association, but it is good because they do a lot of the work. But you also have to manage it and maintain it as well to make sure that they're keeping on track of their tenants when it comes to health and safety. So, how have we helped save money so far?
I'm just going to jump on this really, really quickly because I think might have one or two slides and then we're done. So yeah, we've done quite a bit of work with mentees, students, whatever we'd like to call them at the time, and mainly on analysing deals. Some of the things that can go wrong is if you get your numbers wrong, and we've seen a few of those where people don't include voids, for example. Some people who are new to this and take on large HMOs and believe that they're going to let them kind of straight away, and it doesn't always work like that, although it can. We've actually tried to mentor people away from having HMOs out of their area if they're trying to pass them on to agents, or if they're trying to do viewings. It's taken over an hour to get there and an hour back. It's just some of those sort of things are just things that get flagged up with us, and also with things like licensing, when people have just not got the right licensing, or people have got in there. A lady recently I spoke to has got a property in an Article 4 area she didn't know, and you can't strictly operate it under planning guidelines. So there's lots of things that we assess when we go through this with you to make sure that you don't fall into any of these little rabbit holes to make your property less successful than we really want it to be for you.
So with the HMO market, I think it's very important to take, at least if you take this from today, is to know when to invest and when to walk away. And you need to get the learning and the knowledge in order to know what's a good deal and what's not. And
absolutely, yeah, that's key. Absolutely key.
That's a key in part of this. So if you can take something away today I mean, we've got loads of stuff, but we couldn't never cram it into an hour. We can barely cram it into a day, let alone an hour. But yeah, know when to invest and when to walk away, and invest in yourself and get training. get the knowledge. You can get knowledge from a lot of the speakers over the last 3 days that give you incredible content, but always have the understanding that you always will probably need to learn more. Everyone needs to learn, and especially when it comes to HMOs, there's always something new popping up. Okay, so this is a list of a lot of the things that you need to learn when it comes to not only to property but specifically to HMOs. HMOs are slightly different when it comes into it. Instead of a standard buy to let, there is a lot more of stuff that you need to learn. There's a lot of different approaches when it comes to negotiating with agents and landlords, when it comes to rent, and when it comes to buying. It's quite a different, I'd say quite a different market. It's more, it can be a little bit more intensive, a little bit more labour intensive, not as intensive as SA, but it can be intensive, so that you need to know certain things. You need to know how to create a backup plan, how to advertise it, how to become compliant. Compliance is one of the biggest things, and if you're going to do HMOs, just do it properly. Is my message to you today. If you're going to do it properly and reap the rewards at the end of it because you've done it. So in order to master this strategy, you need to learn inside and out to become successful. So we do mentoring, we do that. We will cover everything that you need to do. We cover all of this, but just make sure that you're aware that if you're going to do it, just do it properly. Learn it all. Don't take the book.
Get to the book quick. Got about 2 minutes.
There you go. And it's
right, let's get to this bit. This is the best bit.
This is the best bit. Really
right, so can I just talk you very quickly through the book? The book is it's $9.99 RRP. It will be. It's a digital download. It's being finished today, believe it or not. It's gone off for its final assessment today before being ready to go and to be emailable. We're asking for a £5 donation to the NHS on the link below, and there's also a little instruction there, but you'll need to contact us through our website. The website is there, HMO Training academy.co.uk. It's a book full of all the stuff that we've talked to you about today, and far more, all from experience. It's for beginners. It's from starting to get out there, getting to know your age and getting your keys, all the way through to starting to get your tenants in. This is part one. There was too much to put in one. I wanted to get it ready for now, so there will be a part two. This is part one. If you'd like one, we're asking for £5 donation only, and it will be digital download. And I think I'm talked out. Josh, are you still there?
I am indeed. Yeah, so everyone get those donations in for that book, because I'm sure it is incredible. The link is in the comments below.
It's brand new. It's not got out to anybody yet. It's brand new. Nobody's read it yet.
So anyone that donates the next 24 hours will get the copy of it first, only for people that have donated to the NHS. So just go over to our website, put in the comments, and just prove to us that you've paid, and we'll get that sent over to you as soon as it's finalised.
Incredible offer, hot off the press, before anyone else gets it. So it's going to a great cause, and you're going to get a fantastic book out of that as well. So really do get those donations in, guys. So we've got time just for a couple of questions now. So we've got a list here. We'll just rattle through those. First one: can you get a standard buy-to-let mortgage on a HMO?
You can get a buy-to-let mortgage. They will ask. Well, might be a bit more difficult now. You will need a deposit, which is probably going to be more than 25% deposit now. Loan to values have changed. Yes, you can. They will ask you. A lot of lenders will ask about experience in being a landlord. If you've never had a property before, it's more difficult to get an HMO mortgage if you're not had some experience in even just normal buy-to-lets. But use a broker. Use a whole of market broker always, because they will get the best deals for you. Just talk to a broker. It'll be a lot to do with your circumstances.
Yeah, there are a few companies, but there are only a select one or two that will do it if you've never had a property before. So you can do it, just the rates are probably quite substantially a little bit higher than normal.
Perfect. On to the next one. So at what point does a HMO become co-living?
It's the same thing really. HMO is anything over more than two people sharing that don't know each other. So if there's more than two households, then that becomes, it is the same as co-living, but it's called an HMO for so two people can live together who don't know each other. Anything above that then is an HMO with legal definition of an HMO, and you're breaking the law if you don't follow the HMO regulations, because you've got that setup of more than 2 people who don't know each other. So it is co-living, but it's a legal definition of an HMO, which can get you into trouble if you don't operate it properly.
Co-living is just the same, it's just another way of saying it,
Yeah.
but HMO is the official definition really for what the house would be in legal terms.
Perfect, spot on. What do you think the minimum investment would be to start a HMO, both on a rent-to-rent basis and purchasing?
I'll do the rent-to-rent one. So you're looking at setup costs. It's going to depend on the property, because it depends whether or not you're going to have to make it compliant. There are fire doors and fire alarms are quite expensive. You may be looking at a couple of £1,000 just to do that, then furnish it. We think on average about between 5,000 and 6,000 to set up a rent-to-rent HMO, probably. But so it might take a while to break even, but you will break even if you do it properly. And so the other question then was buy-to-let. So 25%+ probably now down payment plus all your legal fees. So it depends on the purchase cost literally, and your legal fees and all your setup costs. It depends on refurbishment. So that's quite a difficult one to answer without knowing the deal, but we can have I'm happy to look at some deals off here if anybody wants me to have a little look. That's fine. No charge.
As I say, with rent to rent, the deals can vary. I mean, we have seen some houses that have been set up just for rent to renters and they're all compliant. And some of them do have furniture already in situ, so it does depend on what the offer is and how much you can spend. But it can be obviously more if you've got to put the compliance in and get the furniture. But some houses, especially HMOs that are already pre-existing, will probably already have the compliance and have the furniture, because some landlords will just give them as you see them. And I know that because I've had some that have gone in that way before. So it all depends on the deal really.
Perfect. And the last question, just to wrap things up, do you think HMO demand will drop due to social distancing?
No, I don't. I think that when COVID, when we start to come out of the restrictions, I think there's going to be a lot more people looking for HMOs. It is a cheap option. People are going to have to move for work and things like that. I think it's going to put HMOs back in a stronger position in terms of market. A lot of once the houses are established, there are a lot of them they're adults, obviously, because they're over 18, so they do distance in that sense when they're in the house. But they do become a household, so they can go out together effectively if the social distancing comes in place with that. But I don't think it's really going to affect the market when we start to come back out of it and we start to migrate a bit more. I think there are going to be people that are going to want to move in HMOs because they're cheaper, so I don't think it's going to affect things in that way. I think it may affect it to start off with people social distancing in that sense, but when they become in a house, they become part of that household, so that they can then go out with the people within that house because they live in the same house together. So I don't think it's going to affect. I think it'll affect on the short term, but in the long term, I think it's going the housing market, HMOs are going to be have quite a grounding point to support people in the future on the lower incomes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that wraps that up. Thank you very much for your time. Incredible presentation. We've got a couple of donations coming in now as well for that book, which is absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks to you too. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Keep donating.
Best of luck. Keep going, everybody. Donate.
Right.
Thank you. Bye.
Perfect. That really was a fantastic presentation, and unfortunately it's that time of the day where, due to the way Facebook works, we actually have to close this stream down and start a new one due to the timing limits that they put on those. So what we're going to do is going to refresh the feed on Facebook, because this one will close down and there will be a new one going live in the group almost immediately. We will pin it to the top so that goes straight to you. So everybody, temporary bye from me. Come out of this feed, go on to the new one, and we look forward to kicking things off and taking it all the way until 9 o'clock today. Let's keep going.